I've been invisible for 3 years. That's the truth of living on the edge of Alpha Vila's territory. You learn to move through the forest like mist, present but unnoticed. My hands gather herbs that heal wounds I'm never thanked for treating, dry medicines on racks built from salvaged wood, and prepare tinctures that keep wolves alive through winter fevers. The forest sprawls endlessly around my cabin, all towering pines and moss-covered stones and paths that lead to a pack I can never truly belong to. Hello friends. Before we journey deeper into Naira's story, I invite you to subscribe and share in the comments where you're listening from. Your presence here matters. Now, let's continue. Alpha Vila himself is a shadow I've learned to predict. I hear his howl echoing through the trees at dawn, deep, commanding, and know to keep my distance. I catch glimpses of him through clearings, massive wolf form moving like liquid darkness, or human shape all corded muscle and ritual scars, with eyes the color of amber that never quite land on me. He holds counsel beneath the ancient oak with warriors who speak in growls and challenges. I treat their injuries afterward, collect bloody bandages, and clean wounds they're too proud to acknowledge hurt. I don't ask questions. That's not my place. My place is to disappear. The only constant in this carefully ordered existence is survival. I'm a healer without rank, without family name, without the warrior blood that owns respect in wolf culture. 26 years old with my mother's skill for medicine and none of her pack connections. She died when I was 16, leaving me with knowledge of every plant that grows in these woods and a cabin too far from the pack center to matter. 2 rooms, a stone fireplace, walls that let in winter cold, but it's mine. Well, borrowed. Tenuously tolerated. I work from dawn until the light fails because I need every trade. Because dried meat and firewood don't appear on their own. Because the coastal pack sent word 6 months ago about a debt I didn't know existed. My father's gambling debts transferred to his surviving daughter. My sister Alara held as collateral until payment is made. Because 3 years' worth of service or equivalent resources doesn't materialize from air. And the letters that arrive monthly remind me that time is running out. So I gather. I dry. I brew. I accept whatever wolves bring as payment. Rabbit pelts, venison, sometimes just a nod of acknowledgement. This evening, the sun disappears behind the mountains as I finish hanging the last bundle of feverfew in my cabin's rafters. My shoulders ache from kneeling beside the river all afternoon, and my lower back protests when I bend to collect my gathering basket. October in the northern forests means darkness falls like a predator, and through my small window, I watch the first stars appear against deepening blue. The cabin door is old wood reinforced with iron, and it creaks when I push it open to check the weather. Clear. Cold. The kind of night where your breath fogs and frost will coat the ground by morning. I need moonwort. The silvery plant only blooms fully under moon glow. An old Garrick from the pack's hunting party has an infected leg wound that won't heal without it. He's too stubborn to admit he needs help, but his mate left a partridge at my door this morning. Payment offered before service requested, which means desperation. The river is only half a mile through the woods. I've walked this path hundreds of times, usually in daylight, sometimes at dusk when medicine can't wait. The forest is supposed to be safe. This is Vila's territory, after all, and I've heard the whispers about what that means. Protection. Order. Laws enforced by wolves who answer to an alpha who doesn't tolerate chaos. I pull my healer's satchel across my body, the worn leather strap settling into its familiar groove on my shoulder. 3 weeks ago, I found something unexpected on my doorstep. A silver clasp, intricately carved with wolves running in an eternal circle. Beautiful. Expensive. Clearly meant for someone else, probably dropped by a passing warrior. I added it to my satchel because the old buckle had broken, and waste isn't something I can afford. The clasp catches moonlight as I step outside, gleaming against the leather. The path through the trees is familiar enough that my feet find it without thought. Pine needles cushion my steps, and somewhere an owl calls, low and mournful. I keep my gathering knife sheathed at my hip, not for protection, just for cutting stems and digging roots. I've never needed more. The river appears through the trees, silver water rushing over black stones. Moonwort grows along the bank where mist rises and moisture clings to everything. I kneel in the damp earth, filling my basket with the delicate plants, their leaves almost glowing in the darkness. A branch snaps behind me. I freeze, every instinct suddenly screaming. The forest has gone quiet. No owl, no rustling, no wind. Just silence and the river's endless rushing. Well. The voice is unfamiliar, male, carrying an edge of something dark. What do we have here? I turn slowly, still crouched by the water. 3 wolves in human form emerge from the tree line. Not Vila's wolves. I know every face in the Ironwood pack. These are strangers, and the way they move speaks of different territory, different rules. The leader is scarred, lean, with eyes that assess me like prey. His companions flank him, blocking any path back toward my cabin. Just a healer, I manage, voice steadier than I feel. I don't want trouble. Just a healer, he repeats, stepping closer. Then his eyes land on my satchel. On the silver clasp catching moonlight. His expression changes. Recognition, then something uglier. Satisfaction. You know what that is. He gestures to the clasp, and his companions move closer, forming a half-circle that traps me against the riverbank. It's just, I found it. It's nothing. Nothing. He laughs, but there's no humor in it. That's a claiming mark, little healer. Old pack tradition. Someone very important gave you that. Which means someone very important thinks you're his. The word hits like a physical blow. His. I don't understand. The clasp was just payment, just something left behind, just. This is a message, the leader says, nodding to his companions. For the alpha who thinks he owns these woods. For Vila. The first blow comes before I can scream. They are methodical about it. Calculated. One wolf pins my arms while another drives his fist into my ribs. Once, twice, until something cracks and pain explodes white-hot through my chest. I try to fight, try to shift the little my half-blood heritage allows, but they are stronger, faster, born to this violence in ways I'm not. The leader crouches in front of me as I collapse into the mud, his hand gripping my jaw, forcing me to look at him. Tell your alpha, he says, his breath hot against my face, that borders mean nothing. Tell him we can reach what's his anytime we want. I don't, I gasp, tasting blood. I'm not. He releases me with a shove, and I fall backward into the shallow water. The last thing I see before darkness takes me is them disappearing into the trees, their laughter echoing, and the silver clasp torn from my satchel, lying in the mud like an accusation. When consciousness finally returns, seconds or minutes or hours later, I'm alone. The river runs red around me, or maybe that's just my vision failing. Every breath is agony. My left eye won't open, swollen shut and throbbing. The metallic taste of blood fills my mouth. I push myself to sitting, biting back a sob as my broken ribs protest. My gathering basket is destroyed, moonwort scattered and trampled. My knife is gone. Through my one working eye, I can see my cabin in the distance, impossibly far. Get up. Move. Get home. I don't remember the journey clearly. Just fragments. Crawling through mud. Using trees to pull myself upright. The endless, agonizing path that should take 10 minutes stretching into eternity. I collapse against my cabin door as the first howl splits the night, distant but coming closer. Deep. Ancient. Furious. Not a patrol call. Not a hunt signal. A wolf who's caught the scent of blood and knows exactly whose blood it is. Through the haze of pain and fear, one thought crystallizes with perfect, terrible clarity. I was never invisible at all. The scent hits Vila 3 miles from the river. Blood, fear, her, and his wolf erupts beneath his skin with such violence he barely maintains human form. He's been returning from the northern border, checking trap lines and marking territory, his mind occupied with the usual calculations of leadership. Threat assessments. Resource allocations. The 1,000 tedious details that keep a pack functioning. All of that evaporates the instant her pain reaches him through the darkness. His stride breaks into a run, then a sprint, his body shifting mid-motion until he's on 4 legs, tearing through underbrush with single-minded focus. Pine branches whip past. His paws find purchase on wet stones crossing the creek. Every second that passes feels like glass grinding beneath his ribs because he knows, what that scent means. Someone touched what belongs to him. The river clearing appears through the trees, and Vila forces himself back to human form, though his wolf fights him every step. He needs hands for this. Needs to be able to speak, to assess, to think through the red haze threatening to consume him entirely. She's not at the riverbank. The moonwort is destroyed, trampled into mud mixed with darker stains. 3 distinct scent trails lead away toward Shadowfen territory, carrying the reek of violence and satisfaction. His vision narrows to pinpoints as he follows her scent, weaker now, mixed with blood and terror, toward her cabin. He finds her collapsed against her own door, barely conscious, and the sound that tears from his throat is barely human. Vila drops to his knees beside her, his hands shaking as he touches her face with a gentleness that contradicts everything he is. Her left eye is swollen completely shut, already purpling. Blood seeps from her split lip and a gash above her eyebrow. When he carefully lifts the edge of her torn tunic, rage detonates in his chest at the sight of claw marks carved deliberately across her ribs, 4 parallel lines designed to scar, to mark, to send a message written in her flesh. Naira. His voice comes out rougher than gravel, barely controlled. Who did this to you? Her working eye flutters open, unfocused. She tries to speak, manages only a wet cough that brings up blood. He can hear her ribs grating with each shallow breath, at least 2 broken, possibly more. Don't talk, he commands, already gathering her into his arms with infinite care. I've got you. But she grabs his wrist with surprising strength, forcing words through damaged lips. Shadowfen, the clasp. Her eye rolls back, and she goes limp against his chest. Vila stands in one fluid motion, cradling her weight like it's nothing, like she's the most precious thing he's ever held, which she is, though she doesn't know it. He moves through the forest at a speed that would terrify her if she were conscious, following paths only an alpha knows, heading not toward the pack's central lodge but to his private den carved into the hillside half a mile north. Darian meets him at the entrance, his beater's expression shifting from curiosity to alarm in an instant. What happened? Is that? Get the healers. Now. Vila doesn't slow, pushing past into the warmth of his home. And find out everything you can about Shadowfen movements in the past 24 hours. Who crossed our borders? When? Why? Vila. Now, Darian. His beater disappears, already calling for pack healers through the mental link they share. Vila carries Naira to his bedroom, soft furs, carved furniture that took him months to make, windows that overlook the territory he's built and defended for 8 years. He's never brought anyone here. This space has always been his alone, untouchable, private. Until now. He lays her on his bed with a care that wars against the violence screaming through his veins. Her breathing is shallow, labored. The bruises are already spreading across her pale skin like accusations. He wants to touch her, to reassure himself she's alive, but his hands are shaking too badly, claws extending and retracting involuntarily as his wolf demands release. Hunt. Kill. Destroy everything that hurt her. The healers arrive within minutes, 3 pack members skilled in medicine, their hands immediately assessing damage while Vila paces at the foot of the bed, barely maintaining the veneer of civilization. One healer carefully cuts away Naira's ruined clothing. Another prepares poultices and bandages. The third, an older woman named Meris, looks up at him with knowing eyes. 3 broken ribs, severe lacerations, concussion. She'll survive, Alpha, but she needs rest. Dan. Fix her. His voice tolerates no argument. We are. But Vila, you need to leave. Your presence is making this harder. You're projecting aggression strong enough that. He snarls before he can stop himself, and all 3 healers freeze. Darian appears in the doorway, placing himself deliberately between Vila and the bed. Walk with me, his beater says quietly. Let them work. Vila's eyes never leave Naira's still form. She wore my mark. I know. They knew what it meant. They targeted her specifically. I know. This is Ronan's doing. Testing boundaries. Seeing what I'll tolerate. Darian's jaw tightens. If you retaliate now, this becomes pack war. The Shadowfen will claim justified response to territorial encroachment, and every neutral pack will. They touched her. Vila's voice drops to something barely audible, infinitely more dangerous than any shout. This is already war. The 2 years of memories hit him then, unbidden and overwhelming. The first time he saw her, gathering herbs near the eastern border, humming softly to herself, completely unaware of the massive wolf watching from the ridge above. How she'd smiled at nothing in particular, content in her solitude, and something in his chest had shifted permanently. The rogue wolf he'd killed 18 months ago, the one who'd been circling her cabin for 3 nights, its intentions clear. Vila had torn its throat out silently, buried the body deep, and Naira never knew how close danger had come. Last winter's harshness, when game was scarce and her supplies ran low. He'd left deer at her door every few days, watching from the shadows as she found them, her face lighting with gratitude directed at Providence rather than him. He'd wanted to step forward, to be seen, but the timing felt wrong. She'd seemed content with her isolation, and he had no right to disrupt that peace. 6 months ago, the turning point. He'd taken a blade to the shoulder during a border dispute, nothing fatal, but deep enough to need attention. Instead of visiting pack healers, he'd gone to her cabin at dusk, hood drawn low, voice gruff as he'd requested treatment. She'd welcomed him inside without hesitation, her capable hands cleaning and stitching the wound while she hummed that same melody from their first encounter. Her touch had been steady, gentle, completely professional. When she'd finished, she'd made tea and they'd sat in comfortable silence for nearly an hour before he'd forced himself to leave. He'd returned twice more under similar pretenses, minor injuries that barely warranted attention, excuses to be near her, to hear her voice, to exist in the warm circle of her presence. She'd never asked his name, never questioned why a warrior would seek out a rogue healer instead of pack medicine. She'd simply treated him with the same quiet competence she showed everyone. 3 weeks ago, he'd left his mother's silver clasp on her doorstep. The claiming mark was unmistakable to anyone who understood wolf culture, an heirloom passed down through generations, given only to a chosen mate. He'd known she wouldn't recognize its significance, knew she'd probably think it payment for some past service. But it didn't matter. The clasp made his intentions clear to every wolf who saw it. She was claimed. Protected. His. Except protection only works if he's there to enforce it. They used her to send a message, Darian says, pulling Vila back to the present. Ronan wants you emotional. Wants you to make mistakes. Then he'll get exactly what he wants. Vila moves toward the door, his decision made. Assemble a hunting party. 5 of our best trackers. Vila. I'm not asking. He shifts before Darian can protest further, his wolf form exploding through the doorway and into the night. The Shadowfen scent trails are still fresh, leading back toward the wetlands that border their territories. 3 wolves, confident enough to walk openly, probably expecting retaliation to follow diplomatic channels and formal challenges. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Vila runs through darkness with purpose older than language, following blood and violence back to its source. His pack falls in behind him, warriors who know better than to question their alpha when he moves like this, who understand that sometimes justice can't wait for politics or strategy. The Shadowfen wolves never hear him coming. By the time dawn begins to lighten the eastern sky, Vila stands in human form again, breathing hard, covered in mud and blood that isn't his. 3 wolves kneel before him in the clearing outside Naira's cabin, thoroughly broken but alive. Bailey. His voice, when he finally speaks, carries the weight of absolute authority. Beg. And as the first rays of sunrise filter through the pines, they do. Naira wakes to unfamiliar luxury. Her body screams protest the moment consciousness returns, ribs grinding with each breath, head pounding, every muscle stiff with abuse. But the bed beneath her is impossibly soft, thick furs that smell of pine and something darker, more primal. Predator musk. Male wolf. She forces her eyes open, one still swollen nearly shut, and takes in her surroundings through a haze of pain. The room is carved directly into hillside stone, walls smooth and dark, punctuated by narrow windows that frame slices of forest. Furniture made from ancient oak, every piece clearly crafted by hand. Shelves holding books, weapons, a collection of stones worn smooth by rivers. This isn't the pack lodge. This is someone's private sanctuary. Vila's, her mind supplies, though she doesn't understand how she knows. The door opens without warning, and a woman enters carrying a tray. She's beautiful in the way predators are, all lean muscle and sharp angles, with dark hair braided tight against her skull and eyes the color of winter ice. She moves like violence contained, each step deliberate. You're awake. The woman sets the tray on a side table. Broth, bread, water. Good. The alpha will want to know. Naira tries to sit up, gasps as her ribs shriek protest. Where? His den. You've been unconscious for nearly 12 hours. The woman's expression remains neutral, but something cold lurks beneath. I'm Kira. Lead warrior. I've been assigned to ensure your comfort. The way she says it makes clear that comfort is the last thing on her mind. Thank you, Naira manages, hating how weak her voice sounds. I should return to my cabin. You can't. Kira crosses her arms, blocking the doorway. The alpha forbids it. You're to remain here until he deems it safe. He can't just keep me. His alpha. Kira's tone brooks no argument. He can do whatever serves pack interest. And right now, you've caused quite a commotion, healer. The words land like accusations. Naira forces herself to meet Kira's gaze despite the throbbing in her skull. I didn't ask for this. No one ever does. Kira moves closer, perching on the edge of a chair with predatory grace. But here you are anyway, wrapped in the alpha's furs, guarded in his private den while the pack prepares for war. Do you understand what that means? I don't understand any of this. Frustration bleeds through pain. I'm just a healer. I treat wounds and gather herbs and wear his mother's claiming mark. Kira's smile is sharp enough to draw blood. That clasp you found 3 weeks ago? That's no random payment. That's pack history, healer. An heirloom passed through his bloodline for generations, given only to a chosen mate. The words hit like physical blows. Naira's hand instinctively moves to her satchel, except it's not there, probably destroyed in the attack. I didn't know. It was just on my doorstep, I thought. You thought wrong. Kira leans forward. In our culture, accepting a claiming mark is acceptance of the bond itself. You've been his for 3 weeks. The entire pack knew. Every neighboring territory knew. You just didn't. Naira's mind races, trying to reconcile this information with reality. The silver clasp she'd worn so casually, thinking it beautiful but meaningless. The way certain pack members had started treating her differently, more respectfully, or in some cases, with barely concealed resentment. That's why they attacked me, she whispers. The Shadowfen wolves. They said something about a message. They attacked you because Alpha Ronan saw an opportunity. Kira stands, pacing now. He's been challenging Vila's borders for 2 years, testing weaknesses, pushing boundaries. When he learned about the clasp, learned the Alpha had claimed a low-ranking rogue healer, he saw his opening. Hurt what belongs to Vila, prove that his protection means nothing. But I'm nobody. You were nobody. Kira's expression is unreadable. Now you're the mate of the most powerful alpha in 3 territories. Now you're a weapon that can be used against him. Now you're a liability that could get good wolves killed. The implications settle like stones in Naira's chest. Where is he now? Hunting. The word carries weight. He disappeared into Shadowfen wetlands hours ago. His beater tried to stop him, failed. The last report came at dawn. He has 3 prisoners. Before Naira can process this, the door opens again and a man enters. Older than Kira, with silver threading through dark hair and scars mapping his face like history lessons. His presence is calmer but no less powerful. Enough, Kira. His voice carries quiet authority. The alpha wouldn't appreciate you terrorizing his mate. I'm educating her, Darian. There's a difference. Darian, the beater, Naira realizes, moves to check her bandages with practiced efficiency. How's the pain? Manageable. A lie, but pride demands it. He sees through it immediately, mixing powders into the water glass. Drink. It'll help. Naira obeys, grateful when the herbal mixture begins dulling the worst edges of agony. He went after them. The wolves who attacked me. Yes. Darian settles into the chair Kira vacated. 3 Shadowfen warriors crossed our border, committed violence against his claimed mate, and fled back to their territory. What did you think would happen? I thought, diplomatic channels. Pack law. Something other than justice. Darian's expression is grave. That's exactly what this is, by our standards. They touched what's his. They drew blood. In wolf culture, that debt can only be paid one way. Memories surface unbidden, fragments of the man who'd visited her cabin months ago, seeking treatment for various injuries. Always at dusk, always hooded, his voice rough but his eyes, she'd glimpsed them once, golden and intense, before he'd turned away. The way he'd watched her work, as if memoizing every movement. The careful distance he'd maintained, never quite allowing full contact. That was him, she whispers. Coming to my cabin. He never told me his name. Because he was trying to protect you from exactly this. Darian's tone softens marginally. An alpha taking interest in an unclaimed healer outside pack hierarchy would have made you a target immediately. He thought keeping distance, maintaining anonymity, would keep you safe while he figured out how to proceed. By leaving claiming marks on my doorstep. By making his intentions clear to everyone except you. Kira's voice cuts from the doorway. Brilliant strategy, really. Mark her publicly through the clasp, protect her from the shadows, and hope she'd figure it out before someone else did. Except Ronan figured it out first. Naira closes her eyes, trying to process layers of deception and protection tangled too tightly to separate. What happens now? Neither warrior answers immediately. Then Darian stands, moving toward the window. Now we wait for the alpha to return. And we hope he's still in control when he does. And if he's not? Kira's smile is all teeth. Then war comes faster than any of us are ready for. The words hang in the air as sound erupts from outside, howls echoing across the territory. Not alarm calls. Not hunting signals. Screams. Begging. Then terrible, final silence. The silence that follows is somehow worse than the screaming. Naira lies in Vila's bed, every instinct screaming at her to move despite her body's protests. Kira and Darian have both disappeared, called away by pack business neither bothered explaining. The den feels suddenly cavernous, empty except for her ragged breathing and the distant sounds of wolves moving with purpose outside. She shouldn't go out there. She knows this with crystalline certainty. Whatever is happening in that clearing is pack business, alpha business, the kind of violence her healer's soul should recoil from. But her hands are already gripping the bedpost, pulling herself upright despite the agony that explodes through her ribs. Her legs shake when weight settles on them, but she's treated worse injuries and continued working. She survived 3 years alone on territory's edge, learned to push through pain and exhaustion because stopping means dying. The staff leaning near the door, carved oak, clearly meant for support, becomes her anchor. She uses it to navigate through Vila's den, past the main room with its cold fireplace and shelves of carefully organized territory maps, toward the entrance where morning light streams weakly through. Rain has started falling, soft and persistent, turning the world gray. The path toward her cabin is muscle memory by now, even injured. Her feet find it despite trembling legs, despite the staff that catches on roots and stones. Wolves pass her going the opposite direction, pack members whose faces she recognizes from treating their wounds, but none stop her. They simply watch with expressions ranging from pity to calculation, then continue toward the den. She's halfway there when she hears voices ahead. Low. Broken. Pleading. The clearing outside her cabin appears through the pines, and Naira stops dead. 3 wolves kneel in the mud, human form but barely. Their bodies are destroyed, skin flayed, bones showing through torn flesh, blood mixing with rainwater to create crimson pools. They are alive, conscious, kept alive through deliberate cruelty. One is missing fingers. Another's face is so swollen his features are unrecognizable. The third trembles violently, shock setting in. And behind them stands Vila. He's still in human form, but only just. His chest heaves with each breath, muscles coiled like springs ready to snap. His hands are clawed, tips dark with blood that rain hasn't yet washed away. He's shirtless despite the cold, skin marked with cuts and bruises from his own fighting, dark hair plastered to his skull. But it's his eyes that stop Naira's heart, golden, feral, more wolf than man, burning with an intensity that makes her instinctively step back. He doesn't look at her. His attention is fixed absolutely on the kneeling wolves. Beg, he says, and his voice carries no humanity whatsoever. The wolves comply immediately, words tumbling over each other in desperate supplication. They offer information, Ronan's plans, Shadowfen positions, weaknesses in their alpha's strategy. They offer submission, territory, lives. They sob and grovel and debase themselves completely. Vila listens in absolute silence, rain running down his face, and Naira realizes with sudden clarity that he's already decided their fate. This isn't negotiation. This is ritual. This is justice written in blood and terror, the kind that teaches lessons no written law ever could. Movement in her peripheral vision, Kira standing at the tree line, watching. Darian beside her, expression grim. Other pack members gathering, witnesses to whatever verdict their alpha will deliver. Naira. Vila's voice cuts through rain and pleading. Go back inside. It's the first time he's said her name in her hearing, his tone rough with barely leashed violence. The sound of it in his mouth does something complicated to her chest. She doesn't move. Can't move. Did they suffer? Not enough. His eyes finally meet hers, and the impact is physical. She sees rage there, yes, but also something desperate. Something that needs her to understand what he's done, what he's capable of, what loving him will mean. What would you have done, she hears herself ask, if they'd killed me? The answer comes without hesitation, absolute and terrifying, burned their entire pack to ash. Every last one. The kneeling wolves whimper, understanding this isn't exaggeration. They've seen what he did to them for causing injury. Death would have meant extinction. Naira steps closer, ignoring Kira's hissed warning. She moves until she's within arm's reach of Vila, close enough to see the tremor in his clawed hands, the way his jaw clenches as he fights for control. Close enough to smell blood and rain and the wild musk of his wolf barely contained. I didn't ask for this, she says quietly. Something fractures in his expression, pain mixing with possessiveness. You wore my mark. You accepted my gifts. You belonged to me the moment you smiled at a wolf in the forest and didn't scream. The memory surfaces, months ago, gathering herbs near the ridge, looking up to find massive golden eyes watching from the rocks above. She'd felt no fear, just curiosity and strange recognition. She'd smiled, continued working. And when she'd looked again, the wolf was gone. That was him. All of it was him. Vila gestures sharply, and wolves emerge from the trees. Enforcers, she realizes, the pack's executioners. They drag the 3 Shadowfen wolves away, their renewed screaming quickly muffled by distance and forest density. Naira doesn't look away from Vila's face as the sounds cut off one by one. She watches him watch her, searching for disgust, for rejection, for the horror he clearly expects. Instead, she says, "Thank you." His control shatters visibly. Relief and need and something raw flood his expression. He takes one step toward her, stops himself forcibly. "You should rest. So should you." "I can't." His voice drops to barely audible. "Not yet. Not until I'm sure you're safe. Not until I know." He stops, jaw working. "Know what?" "That you understand what you've gotten into. What I am. What this means." Naira leans heavily on her staff, ribs screaming, looking at this man who's killed for her, who's watched her for years from shadows, who's just demonstrated exactly how far he'll go to protect what's his. She should be terrified. Part of her is. But another part, the part that survived 3 years alone, that understands the brutal mathematics of wolf culture, that recognizes protection when she sees it even in its most violent form, that part understands perfectly. "I understand," she says. "You're mine. And I'm yours. And anyone who forgets that learns the hard way." Thunder rolls across the sky as if punctuating her words. Vila stares at her like she's something impossible, something he'd convinced himself he could never have. Then he simply turns and walks into the forest, needing distance before his control fails completely. Naira watches him disappear, then begins the agonizing journey back to the den. She's halfway there when she realizes something that should frighten her but doesn't. She's not going back to her cabin. Not now. Probably not ever. That life, invisible, solitary, safe, ended the moment she wore his claiming mark. This new life, dangerous and complicated and bound to an alpha who loves her with terrifying intensity, is just beginning. 3 days pass in careful orbits. Naira heals slowly, her body knitting itself back together under the watchful care of pack healers who visit twice daily. The den becomes familiar, the way morning light slants through eastern windows, the creak's distant murmur, the soft creak of floorboards when someone approaches. She learns the rhythms of pack life through sounds. Dawn patrols departing, hunting parties returning, the low rumble of voices discussing territory and threats and politics she's only beginning to understand. Vila doesn't visit while she's awake. But she knows he comes. Fresh bandages appear beside her bed each morning, precisely wrapped. Food arrives still warm, venison stew, herb bread, things he's somehow learned she prefers. The firewood is always stocked, the water pitcher filled. Once, she woke at dawn to find a blanket tucked around her shoulders that hadn't been there when she'd fallen asleep, still carrying his scent. He doesn't trust himself around you yet, Darian explains on the third afternoon, checking her healing ribs with professional efficiency. What he did in the wetlands, he's not fully back. Naira flexes carefully, testing range of motion. The worst pain has faded to persistent ache. Back from what? From the place alphas go when what's theirs is threatened. Darian's expression is grave. That kind of rage, it doesn't just disappear. It has to be worked through, controlled, contained. Right now he's barely maintaining human form. Being near you would. Would what? Would break what's left of his control. And neither of you is ready for that conversation yet. But Naira is tired of careful distance and protective avoidance. That evening, when the den is quiet and moonlight streams through windows, she explores more thoroughly. Vila's private spaces tell stories his silence doesn't. Shelves of books on pack lore and medicinal herbs, maps marked with her cabin's location surrounded by concentric circles of patrol routes, sketches that make her breath catch. Drawings of her. Dozens of them. Gathering herbs by the river, hanging plants in her cabin, treating wounded wolves, sitting on her doorstep drinking tea. Each one precise, detailed, clearly drawn from memory by someone who'd watched her far longer than she'd realized. Pressed between two books, she finds a moonwort flower, silvery and delicate, perfectly preserved. Her favorite healing herb. The one she'd been gathering the night of the attack. Understanding settles heavy in her chest. This isn't obsession, though it borders on it. This is devotion. Patient, careful, desperate devotion from an alpha who'd convinced himself that distance meant safety. She's still holding the pressed flower when the letter arrives. A young pack wolf delivers it at dusk, sealed with unfamiliar wax. The parchment is expensive, the handwriting elegant. Naira breaks the seal with trembling fingers and reads words that shatter her carefully rebuilt composure. To the healer Naira. Your sister Ilara remains our guest, collateral for debts your father incurred before his death. We understand you now reside under Alpha Vila's protection. Perhaps this changes your circumstances. The debt stands at 3 years' service or equivalent territorial concessions. We await response. Alpha Cormac, Coastal Pack. The paper slips from her hands. Ilara. Her baby sister, who she'd been told died of fever at 13. Who'd actually been alive, held by another pack, used as leverage for 5 years while Naira worked herself to exhaustion trying to scrape together payment for a debt she hadn't known existed. She's still staring at the letter when Vila finally enters. He moves silently despite his size, stopping in the doorway when he sees her face. For a moment they simply look at each other, first time since the clearing, first time without blood and rain and violence between them. Tell me, he says, voice rough from disuse. So she does. Everything. Her father's gambling, his debts, his lies about Ilara's death. The monthly letters demanding payment. 5 years of her sister's life traded for obligations Naira never agreed to. Vila listens in absolute silence, his expression shifting from neutral to dangerously focused. When she finishes, his response is immediate. I'll pay it. You can't. It's not your. Everything about you is mine now. He moves closer, controlled but intense. That includes your debts, your family, your protection. Your sister will be here within a week. Relief crashes through her so violently she sways. Vila crosses the remaining distance instantly, his hands steadying her with careful strength. This close, she can see exhaustion in the lines around his eyes, blood still dried in his hair, the way his muscles tremble with suppressed energy. You look terrible, she says, and somehow it comes out fond rather than critical. I haven't slept. Because you're afraid of hurting me. Her healer's assessment, gentle but firm. His jaw clenches. I'm afraid I won't stop at just touching you. The honesty in those words does something complicated to her chest. Naira reaches up slowly, telegraphing movement, giving him every chance to pull away. Her fingers brush his jaw, feeling the tension coiled there. Then don't stop, she whispers. Something breaks in his expression. He moves with controlled violence, closing the space between them, his hands framing her face with desperate care. His thumb traces her healing bruises, the claw marks on her shoulder, each injury his fingers map with something between rage and reverence. You should fear me, he says against her temple. I know. I killed for you. I'll kill again. I know that too. His control fractures further. The kiss, when it comes, is desperate, claiming, possessive, interrupted almost immediately by Darian's voice calling urgently from outside. Alpha. Border Patrol reports movement. Multiple signatures. Vila pulls away, breathing hard, every muscle taut. I need to handle this. I know. But Naira, he pauses at the door, looking back. We're not done. After he leaves, the den feels impossibly empty. Naira sinks onto the bed, touching her lips where his kiss still burns, trying to process the shift in her entire world. Kira appears in the doorway minutes later, expression unreadable. You have no idea what you've just become, do you? The warrior's voice carries something between warning and resignation. You're not his weakness anymore. You're his obsession. And obsessions get people killed. Before Naira can respond, commotion erupts outside, horses arriving, voices raised. A messenger in formal livery dismounts in the courtyard, carrying sealed documents marked with Shadowfen's crest. Darian accepts them with visible tension, breaks the seal, reads. His expression darkens. It's a formal challenge, he announces to the gathering pack. Alpha Ronan requests territorial meeting, neutral ground, witnessed by neighboring packs. He specifically mentions the healer incident and demands reparations. Vila's voice cuts through rising murmurs, cold and absolute. Send response. I'll attend his meeting. And he'll learn exactly what reparations look like. Naira watches from the den's window as pack politics shift into something dangerous. She touches the letter about Alara still clutched in her hand, understanding with perfect clarity that safety is an illusion. She's tied to an alpha now. His enemies are her enemies. His wars are her wars. And war is coming whether she's ready or not. 4 days after the attack, Alara arrives. Naira watches from the den's entrance as warriors escort a single horse through the forest path. The rider is young, 19, with Naira's same dark hair and sharper features, wearing clothes that have seen hard use. When she dismounts, her movements carry the careful efficiency of someone who's learned not to waste energy, not to draw attention, not to trust easily. Their eyes meet across 30 feet of clearing, and something in Naira's chest breaks open. Ellie. Her sister's expression cracks. You're alive. They said you were alive, but I didn't. They collide in the middle of the clearing, Naira ignoring her healing ribs as Alara's arms wrap around her with fierce strength. 5 years. 5 years of believing her sister dead, of working herself to exhaustion for nothing, of being alone. I thought you died, Naira whispers into Alara's shoulder. Father said fever took you. I mourned you. He sold me. Alara's voice is steady, but her hands shake. Traded me to settle debts, told you I was dead so you wouldn't look. I've been Cormac's guest since I was 14. Cooking, cleaning, playing hostage whenever he needed leverage. Guilt floods through Naira so violently she sways. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't. I know. Alara pulls back, studying her sister's bruised face with clinical assessment. So you accidentally claimed yourself to a psychotic alpha and started a war? That's very you. The absurdity of it breaks tension. Naira laughs despite everything, and Alara grins, sharp, dark humor that cuts through trauma like a blade. Pack members gather cautiously, assessing this new addition. Vila emerges from his meeting hall, and Naira feels his presence like gravity shifting. He approaches with careful neutrality, reading the reunion with alpha instincts. Your sister is welcome here, he says formally. The debt is paid. She's under pack protection now. Alara's eyes narrow, taking in his size, his scars, the way every wolf present unconsciously defers to him. You plan to get my sister killed for your ego. Silence drops like a stone. Several pack members freeze, shocked by the disrespect. But Vila's mouth twitches, almost a smile. I plan to kill anyone who tries. Ilara studies him for a long moment, then nods once. Good. Because if you get her hurt worse than this, psychotic alpha or not, I'll find a way to make you regret it. Ellie. Naira hisses, horrified. But Vila looks genuinely amused. I believe you would. Later, in Naira's room with the door closed, Ilara drops the bravado. Okay, he's terrifying. But the way he looks at you? That's not just possession. That's devotion. Dangerous, all-consuming devotion. I know. Do you? Ilara sits on the bed, suddenly exhausted. Because I've spent 5 years watching power dynamics, Naira. Watching how alphas operate, how they use people, how love and control get tangled until you can't tell them apart. This one, he'd burn the world for you. Question is whether you survive the flames. Before Naira can respond, a horn blows, 3 sharp notes signaling pack assembly. They emerge to find the central courtyard filled with wolves, all attention fixed on Darian standing at the hall entrance. Council meeting, he announces. Alpha Ronan's challenge requires formal response. Inside the hall, pack hierarchy is on full display. Vila presides from a carved chair that's not quite a throne, Darian at his right, Kira at his left. Senior warriors occupy inner circles while scouts and younger members stand at the periphery. Naira and Ilara slip in quietly, trying to be unnoticed. Vila's eyes find Naira immediately, track her to the back wall. She feels his attention like physical touch. Ronan demands meeting at Standing Stones, 3 days hence, Darian reports. Neutral ground, witnessed by 3 neighboring packs. He claims the attack on Naira was justified discipline of a rogue on contested territory. He's demanding we either acknowledge his authority to police our borders or pay Weigiled for the 3 wolves we executed. Angry murmurs ripple through assembled wolves. Kira stands, her voice cutting through noise. It's a trap. Ronan doesn't negotiate, he legitimizes. He's looking for witnesses to establish legal grounds for invasion. He'll position himself as the wronged party defending territorial integrity. Tactical assessment. Vila's voice is cold, focused. His pack has grown. 2 smaller packs absorbed in the last 6 months through intimidation. He's got 40 warriors, maybe more. We're stronger individually, but prolonged conflict favors numbers. An older warrior speaks up. If you attend, Alpha, you give him what he wants, spectacle, legitimacy, opportunity for ambush. If you don't attend, you appear weak. Then I attend on my terms. Vila's decision is absolute. Full warrior escort. Heavy border patrols while we're gone. And Naira stays here, heavily guarded. Naira steps forward before she can stop herself. I should be there. I'm the reason. Exactly. Vila's eyes lock on hers. You're the reason. Which makes you the target. You don't leave this territory. You can't just decide. I'm Alpha. I absolutely can decide. His tone brooks no argument, but something desperate flickers beneath. You don't understand how this works. You're not a chess piece to be moved. You're what they'll take if given any chance. Their first real argument happens in front of the entire pack. Naira accuses him of making her a prisoner. Vila accuses her of not understanding the danger. Voices rise until Darian intervenes diplomatically, suggesting they continue this discussion privately. Later that night, Vila appears at her door, edges worn down. I can't lose you. The words come rough, stripped of alpha authority. I've spent 2 years watching you from shadows, learning your patterns, fighting the instinct to claim you openly. Now that I have you, now that they know you're mine, I can't breathe without knowing you're safe. Naira's anger softens despite herself. I'm not fragile. No. You're essential. Which is infinitely more dangerous. He crosses to her slowly, giving her space to refuse. Every enemy I've made in 8 years of holding this territory will use you against me. Ronan is just the first. There will be others. Always others. So I hide forever. So you stay alive. His hand cups her jaw with desperate gentleness. I survived 32 years without knowing I could feel this. Now that I know, now that I have you, losing you would end me. Not kill me. Worse. It would turn me into something that should be put down. The raw honesty breaks her resistance. Then we sleep. Both of us. Properly. That night, for the first time, he stays. They lie in his bed wrapped together. No sex, nothing beyond his body curved protectively around hers, his breathing finally evening out into something like rest. Naira wakes to pre-dawn darkness and Ilara shaking her shoulder urgently. The scouts are back, her sister whispers. Ronan's not coming to negotiate. He's bringing an army. Dawn breaks cold and sharp over preparation for war disguised as diplomacy. Naira watches from the den's window as warriors arm themselves, blades strapped to thighs, light armor that allows shifting, faces grim with understanding that this meeting could become bloodshed in heartbeats. Vila moves among them, checking equipment, his presence settling nervous energy through pure force of will. Darian approaches him quietly. I still think bringing her might be safer. Keep her close, under your direct protection rather than divided forces. No. Vila's response is immediate, absolute. She stays. That's final. But something in Naira's gut twists wrong. She spent 3 years surviving by reading situations, trusting instincts that kept her alive on territory's edge. Pack dynamics have shifted subtly over the past days. Certain wolves avoid eye contact, conversations stop when she enters rooms, tension that feels wrong. Ilara appears at her shoulder, voice low. Someone here doesn't want you safe. You feel it too. I spent 5 years watching power plays, Naira. I know what betrayal looks like before it happens. Someone's feeding information. They watch as Kira volunteers to stay behind, ostensibly to lead den defense. It should be reassuring, the lead warrior protecting home territory. Instead it feels like pieces sliding into wrong positions on a game board Naira doesn't fully understand. Vila comes to say goodbye, his hands framing her face with careful intensity. I'll be back by nightfall. Don't leave the den. Promise me. I promise. The lie tastes bitter, but his worry is suffocating. He kisses her forehead, then her mouth, possessive and desperate. Stay alive, Naira. That's all that matters. She watches him disappear into the forest with 30 warriors, then turns to find Kira watching from across the courtyard. Something cold lurks in the warrior's expression. 2 hours later, Naira's instincts prove correct. She's helping younger wolves organize medical supplies when she notices Kira sending a scout toward Shadowfen borders, subtle, but unmistakable. When the scout returns, he goes directly to Kira, bypassing normal chain of command. Naira follows at a distance, Ilara shadowing her. They find Kira in the army, burning a letter, but not before Naira catches fragments. Meeting location confirmed, she'll be here, minimally guarded. You're feeding him information. Naira's voice cuts through the dim space. Kira spins, hand instinctively moving to her blade. For a moment, genuine surprise crosses her face. Then resignation. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. You told Ronan about the claiming mark. Told him Vila and I weren't fully bonded. Gave him the legal angle he needed. Understanding crystallizes. Why? Because he's going to get us all killed for you. Kira's voice carries frustration, not malice. I've served this pack 8 years, fought beside him, bled for this territory. Then you appear, nobody, nothing, just a rogue healer, and suddenly he's ready to risk everything. You're not worth our pack's survival. So you betrayed him to Ronan. I contacted Ronan to negotiate bloodless resolution. Give up the healer, avoid war, maintain peace. Kira moves closer. I didn't betray Vila. I tried to save him from himself. By selling me. By making the practical choice. You're one life. We're dozens. The mathematics are simple. Ilara steps forward, positioning herself between them. Except you forgot something. She's not just one life anymore. She's his mate. You don't trade that away and call it practical. Kira's expression hardens. Then you're both fools. He's at standing stones right now, walking into Ronan's trap because he can't think past his obsession. And when he falls, she falls, and the pack falls with them. What trap? Naira demands. But Kira's eyes shift past them, toward the window. Understanding dawns too late. The trap that's already sprung, Kira says quietly. Ronan's not at standing stones. His army is here. The first howl splits the air, attack signal, close, too close. Kira runs for the door, and despite everything, she's shouting orders to defend the den. Whatever her betrayal, pack loyalty runs deeper. Naira grabs Ilara's arm. We need to warn Vila. How? He's miles away. I know these forests better than anyone. I know paths, shortcuts, routes the pack doesn't use. Naira is already moving, grabbing her healer's satchel out of habit. You help defend here. I'm going. Naira, you're still injured. And Vila's walking into an empty meeting while Ronan attacks his home. I'm going. She runs despite protesting ribs, despite Ilara's shouted warnings, despite knowing this is exactly what she promised not to do. The forest paths are instinct deep, carved into memory from 3 years of solitary gathering. She takes the river route, the hidden game trails, moving faster than caution allows. Behind her, sounds of battle erupt, Shadowfen forces hitting the den in coordinated assault. Ahead, Standing Stones waits empty. She reaches the ancient clearing as Vila realizes the trap. His warriors are tense, weapons drawn, facing empty ground where Ronan should be. Darian is arguing strategy when Naira bursts through the tree line, gasping. Vila spins, his expression shifting from shock to fury in an instant. I told you to stay. It's a trap. Ronan's at the den. Attacking now. Kira, she doubles over, ribs screaming. Kira gave him information. Not full betrayal, but enough. He knows you're here. Knows the den is vulnerable. The words land like stones. Vila's face goes absolutely still, that terrible calm before violence. Then his moving, shifting mid-stride, his massive wolf form tearing back toward home territory. Naira runs after him, knowing she can't keep pace but unable to stop. Darian catches her, lifting her onto his back as he shifts. Hold on. The journey back is nightmare speed, trees blurring past, other wolves running in formation. They arrive to chaos, Shadowfen warriors attacking the den. Kira and remaining defenders fighting desperately, Ilara cornered but still standing, blood on her hands. And in the center of it all, Ronan himself, massive and scarred, facing the den's entrance. Vila hits him like avalanche. The fight is savage, primal, 2 alphas with no strategy beyond destruction. They tear at each other with claws and teeth, human and wolf forms shifting fluidly. Blood sprays across mud and stone. Naira watches Vila lose himself to rage, the man disappearing into the beast. His winning but barely, control fracturing with each blow. If he goes completely feral, he won't come back. She steps forward, insane, suicidal, into the space between them. Enough. Her hand finds Vila's blooded muzzle, his massive head turning toward her. I'm safe. Come back to me. For a heartbeat, she sees nothing human in those eyes. Then recognition flickers. The wolf form shudders, shrinks, until Vila kneels before her in human shape, covered in blood and breathing hard. Ronan, broken but alive, tries to rise. Vila's warriors surround him instantly. Dawn light spills across the clearing as surviving Shadowfen wolves are forced to their knees. They outnumbered Vila's forces, but desperation and fury tipped the scales. Now they kneel in mud, defeated, surrounded, facing an alpha who's barely contained. Vila stands slowly, pulling Naira against his side with possessive care. His voice, when he speaks, carries death. Beg. They beg. Every Shadowfen wolf present, including Ronan himself, pleads for mercy as sunrise paints the forest gold and red. Their voices crack with desperation, offering everything: territory, loyalty, resources, information. The proud warriors who'd attacked thinking numbers meant victory now grovel in mud mixed with their own blood. Naira watches beside Vila, his arm wrapped around her waist like she might disappear. His breathing is still rough, violence barely leashed. She can feel the tremor in his muscles, the way his claws extend and retract involuntarily. Ronan is the last to break, the defeated alpha finally lowering his eyes. Mercy. I yield. My pack yields. Vila's silence stretches until it becomes weapon. Then he looks down at Naira, his expression complex, asking permission, offering choice, making her part of this justice rather than protected observer. This is your justice, he says quietly. What would you have me do? She could ask for death. They attacked her, used her, started this war. Pack law would support execution. Part of her, the part still feeling broken ribs and healing bruises, wants exactly that. But she thinks of Ilara, of 5 years stolen by power games. Of cycles of violence that never end because mercy is seen as weakness. I want peace, she says clearly, voice carrying across the silent clearing. Permanent submission. They kneel now, they kneel forever. Vila's eyes search hers, making sure. She nods once. Ronan's pack dissolves, Vila declares, voice absolute. Absorbed into my territory. All wolves present submit to my authority or face exile. Ronan himself is banished. You have until sunset to disappear beyond the mountains. If I see you again, if I catch your scent within 100 miles, you die. Exile. For an alpha, worse than death, stripped of pack, of identity, of everything that defines existence. The 3 who attacked Naira specifically are already dead. Vila continues, his tone flat. That debt is paid. The rest of you own your lives through permanent service. You'll work, fight, and bleed for this pack until I decide otherwise. The Shadowfen wolves accept with bowed heads, understanding mercy when they see it, harsh but allowing survival. Kira approaches slowly, weaponless, her expression carefully neutral. The pack parts for her, uncertain of her status. She stops before Vila and Naira, meets the alpha's eyes, then deliberately lowers her gaze in submission. I acted against pack interest. I contacted Ronan thinking I was preventing war, but I gave him the information he used to attack. The fault is mine. I accept judgment. Vila's silence is dangerous. Pack law demands harsh punishment for betrayal, demotion at minimum, exile or death at worst. Naira feels him tense, feels the pack waiting. She steps forward. She fought when it mattered. When Ronan's forces came, she defended the den. She could have opened the gates, invited them in. She didn't. That doesn't erase, Kira starts. No. But it counts. Naira looks at Vila. I'm not asking for full forgiveness. But exile seems extreme for someone who genuinely thought she was protecting the pack, even if she was wrong about how. Vila studies both women, then nods slowly. Demoted. You serve under Darien now, no independent command. You'll earn back trust through action, not words. If you ever contact another alpha without my explicit permission, I'll kill you myself. Kira's shoulders drop with relief. Understood, alpha. As dawn fully breaks, pack members begin sorting through aftermath, tending wounded, organizing new territory, integrating absorbed wolves. Ilara finds Naira, blood spattered but grinning fiercely. You ran into battle after making me promise to be careful. The hypocrisy is stunning. I had to warn him. I know. Doesn't make it less insane. Ilara hugs her carefully, mindful of injuries. I'm staying, by the way. Darien offered me position as strategist. Apparently watching power dynamics for 5 years makes me useful. You don't have to. I want to. You're here. For the first time since father's death, we're together. I'm not leaving that. Hours later, after wounded are treated and order restored, Vila finally leads Naira back to his den. They are both exhausted, covered in blood and mud, running on adrenaline fumes. Inside, he collapses onto the bed, pulling her down beside him. For long moments they just breathe together, processing survival. I almost lost you 3 times in 1 week, he says finally, voice raw. But you didn't. Naira shifts to face him, ignoring protesting muscles. And you won't. Because I'm not some fragile thing you found in the forest anymore. I'm your mate. Your equal. And I chose this knowing exactly what you are. And what am I? She considers carefully, tracing the blood-dark line of his jaw. A monster who loves me. And I love you too. His control breaks. He kisses her desperately, possessively, every fear and relief pouring through. When they finally part, dawn light fills the room completely. No more hiding, he says against her temple. No more watching from shadows. You're mine, publicly and permanently. Every wolf from here to the coast will know. Good. She means it. I'm done being invisible. They stand together at the den's entrance as pack members gather below, looking up at their alpha pair. Naira no longer invisible but essential. Vila no longer alone but bound to someone who chose him because of everything he is. In the distance, Ronan disappears beyond mountain passes, exiled and broken. New wolves integrate into pack structure, learning what submission to Vila means. Kira works beside Darian, earning back trust through action. And Naira understands with perfect clarity that her life has irrevocably changed. She's no longer the rogue healer at territory's edge. She's the alpha's mate, pack healer, someone who matters. The isolation she'd accepted for 3 years is gone, replaced by belonging that comes with its own dangers. But watching Vila address the pack, his hand never leaving hers, she realizes something. His greatest strength isn't his violence or his territory or his dominance. It's what he's willing to protect. What he's willing to become for those he loves. And she's willing to be exactly that strong beside him. The end. Thank you for joining Naira and Vila's journey. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What moment hit you hardest? Which character surprised you most? Your engagement helps me create more stories like this. Subscribe to catch future tales, and until next time, may you find someone who'd burn the world to keep you safe, and may you be strong enough to keep them human. Stay wild, friends.